All right, let's set up to prepare for wiring. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to show you an easy way to check your wiring. Now, as we know, this thing right is that way, which means and red is always right. So red will be this side closest to it. So I'm going to take a black Sharpie. All right, and we know this outside rail is the black rail. I'm just going to trace them. And I'm going to trace all the other rails that are also the black rail. Okay, let's just go through this whole thing here. Trace it from end to end. Alright, and everybody, that's the black rail. We're going to leave the frogs alone because they need to be isolated themselves. Okay. Then let's take the red Sharpie and let's trace out some of the red rails. This is going to help us get a good visual on what power goes where, because I think we've made the decision we are going to install the feeder wires before we put the track into its place. Okay, let's go through. Did we get them all? Okay, so it should be looking like this. All right. Now that tells us which lead goes to which. Because remember our rule, we attach from the power supply. If we attach the lead, the minus or the black rail, the plus the red rail. If I put some alligator clips on here, and I put a locomotive on here, and I set the DC power pack arrow to the right, the locomotive should move to the right when I give it some power. Now, because these PC board ties are all conductive, we have to go through and we got to cut a little gap in them. And there's a couple of ways I can do this. One of my favorite ways is to take this diamond kind of shaped file that looks like this. This guy's really sharp. And a lot of you use your triangle files, and that's what the Fast Tracks manual will tell you to do, is use a triangle file. That's pretty good, but this thing is sharper and faster, and I just made a little wood handle for it, so it would be even faster. This thing is very aggressive, so we got to be a little careful. But let's get right in here, and I'm going to start over here. Now remember, I also got to put nail holes in here, because I don't glue my track down, I nail it. And I don't want to put the gap somewhere. In fact, I'm not going to do that. We're going to mark the nail holes first with a black Sharpie. I want some place where I can nail this down, like right here and right there. Probably right here. Let's go back a little farther, maybe right about here. I'm going to do all the ones that have the hinge part. And I may not use all these either. But I want this thing to stay in place. And definitely towards the ends. Maybe right about there. Okay, so now I don't want the nail head itself to bridge the gap. So on these, I want to cut my gap around them. Now this is a much slower way, but for tough to get spots, it's very easy. Okay, now tricky part. I've already done these, but if we look, we have got to gap between these two rails right here. between these rails right here. Those are important gaps that often get overlooked. See, so I could take that file and I could go through here, but I can also do it another way. I can do it the fast way. Now the fast way comes with its own risk. If I do this, if I take this guy, and frogs. Frogs get isolated special. Let's go ahead and do the frog. I'll do this one over here and we'll look at it. I'm gonna take this guy. I'm gonna come in. Okay, now here, tricky part. Got my frog isolated. Okay, so I got gap here. Here. The frog itself is now completely isolated. Then I gapped, in between here, all that. Here's one I don't want to do. This one here, we don't do that one because it's a red and a red. We want those two together. We get gapped in the middle here. And here we got black rail. So we don't gap here. We keep those. Then the power from this rail goes to that rail. And that's what we want. Same thing here. I have to gap here, and so on down the line until I get them all. And then we're going to come back and we're going to add some wires for the orphaned rails. So that's where we're at on gaps.